Welcome to Alive and Writing, a podcast on troubleshooting life as a writer.
I'm Shatona Havig.
I'm April Heyman.
And I'm C.R. Rowanson. We're here.
We're alive.
And we're writing.
Excellent. So, can I or may I ask you two a question?
I guess.
I suppose. Fine, whatever.
Okay. Am I the most awesome writer on the face of the planet?
Ooh.
No.
See, not the feedback I was looking for.
Yeah, well, good news is neither one of us are either, so hey.
Yeah, I'm
you're,
not sure
you're
where we're
good
supposed
company
to go
or
from.
bad company. I mean, you're in company.
Yes. You are
I'm in
fact
company. I am, in fact, in company.
Okay, so what's all this about feedback?
Well, that's the topic for today's podcast.
I don't think I did my homework.
You did do your homework. You get to go to the back of the line.
Okay.
So today it's feedback.
So that would be my feedback to Shatona, is that she needs to do more work.
I like I have time.
Okay.
Oh, it's been a long day.
Yeah, very long.
Yes, it is. So what is feedback specifically? At least for writers, because I know we can get feedback in a lot of different ways, but what is feedback specifically for us?
Painful.
It can be painful, actually.
Well, feedback is kind of like, even with like audio stuff, when it echoes in the room, you put something out there and you get something in return, and it can be good, bad, or indifferent. But it's the reaction to
I see
whatever
where you're
it is.
going, though. So what exactly is feedback? How does it pertain to us as writers? And why should we get it? I asked the question so I don't have to answer.
Okay.
Nice.
I have a question
Why didn't
for
I
you.
think of that?
Nope.
question for
Answer my
you.
question first.
Well, what I want to know is if feedback is important as a writer, and we know that feedback is someone's response to something, then when do we want it and when don't we?
Well, first off, why is feedback important? We'll come back to that, I promise.
Okay.
But why is feedback important?
Well, feedback is important because you cannot improve without having thrown something out there and having someone read it. Not just someone read it, but at least someone you either trust to give you some kind of information back, or someone who is interested in the genre that you're writing, that understands the genre.
So
it's feedback. I
It
don't
makes
know
us
how to-
better, right?
It makes us better writers. Jeez, it's feedback, Clark. Come on, man.
All right. I know we're all writers here. Listeners are writers. I'm kind of beating a dead horse. He's long dead.
Are you kidding? That's
But I like
You're
the-
beating the bones at this point.
I like the breaking sounds.
You're a horror writer. Of course you do.
So, back to your question, Shatona. You were asking whether we always need to take feedback. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So if feedback is important, when do we accept feedback, take feedback, look at it, and take hold of it and own it? And when do we reject it? Because if we know when to reject it, then we know what's important, right?
First off, it's okay to ignore feedback. All right, we're going all over the place here. So, for me, I need to get feedback most when I have finished the draft of a book or a story. Otherwise, I'm still forming ideas, and it's not feedback at that point. It's brainstorming and problem solving. Feedback for me is specifically when I have completed something and I want to improve it.
Okay, I will give you that, and that's when you don't ignore it, unless
Well, that's when I ask for it.
right.
And I think that's the distinguishing point here, is that you have to be asking for the feedback for it to be pertinent feedback.
Right. If you're not asking and people are giving it to you, it's just unwanted
Advice.
noise.
It's kind of like someone who doesn't have children telling you how to raise your own child.
I know how you should do it, so...
Right.
Says the man with no children.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I have a perfect record.
Let's play the numbers
Oh,
game here.
your time is coming, buddy. Your time is coming.
So the point is, you need to go to other people to get feedback, and I'm pretty sure we've done another episode at some point about finding readers. If we haven't, we
Right.
should. It's finding readers, finding cheerleaders, but one thing that is important to drive home is once all of these people get back to you, it's okay to not take all of the advice.
You can't, because you will get conflicting advice. It's not possible to take all of that feedback in and act on all of it as they expect you to. You can't do that.
So how do you figure out which pieces to accept and which pieces to toss?
Very, very carefully. So a lot of times there's some feedback where people will point something out. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't see that. Totally, I need to fix that. On occasion, I will hear something that will either hurt or I will hate or I just flat out disagree with. And those, I usually try and flag them for later, because while it's okay to not take feedback, you should never dismiss feedback. So I spend a lot of time thinking about why I don't like what they said. And sometimes it's because it would take the story in a direction I don't want to go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or it would change the characters into someone I don't want them to be. So, for example, in the book I'm working on now, I have a character who is really hard on herself. Her inner voice is just a not nice person. And some of my beta readers flagged that, but I refuse to change it because that's the point of who she is.
It is the point of who she is.
Yes,
I totally
and
agree
if
with
she
you.
didn't have that, she wouldn't be the character that she is.
And she would also be a rather flat character without that.
I think so.
I'd have to make a new character pretty much.
Right.
And then it's not your story. The story wouldn't be the same story once you remove that part of her personality.
Right.
This is a character who needs that part of herself.
So, do you, when you get that kind of feedback, and it's the only person you have gotten feedback for that particular problem, does it have less credence to it then that nobody else flagged it?
No.
Not necessarily, no. The point is that all feedback is not completely true or completely false.
That's a really good way to put it.
It's kind of like even when people make a joke that actually hurts.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually some underlying truth to that. It's the same with feedback. Even if the feedback is there's only one person that caught it, it doesn't mean that it's you've got to change everything or you can totally ignore it. Sometimes I choose to. Sometimes my editors, for example, they're not always up on pop culture. You know, one is in Ireland, one is more remote, and so I'll write things that everybody would get. And they don't. I can't just say, oh, well, I got to take that out because they didn't get it.
And this brings up, like, obviously, these are kind of the main points that we think are most important. Is first, you don't have to take all of the feedback. The other thing with it is that no feedback is necessarily invalid, and you should never dismiss the people who gave you feedback.
Right.
Just because you don't take it doesn't mean they're wrong. And just because it doesn't fit doesn't mean, or just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
It's a big gray area that you can wander around in, and that's fine. But I really have to drive this home, is don't just dismiss people who give you feedback.
So in other words, don't overreact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about feedback as if there's just like one type of feedback. There's got to be more than just feedback. So are there different types of feedback?
There's one other point I want to make real quick, because
Okay.
that dead horse is there and I'm just beating it. But
Bones are breaking.
so not dismissing the people is really important, because with that story, April actually brought up some points about my character. I didn't end up taking them. I didn't change anything, but that doesn't mean her points were invalid. The reason I'm going to great lengths to belabor this point is you need to treat these people spent time giving you a resource. Right. So don't belittle them because of that. Exactly. I tried to help one writer who sent me a couple of chapters and said, I'm getting comments saying this is confusing and I don't understand why it's confusing. So I read through the chapters as carefully as I could, pointed out the things that might be confusing, how this bit here seemed like it kind of contradicted this bit here, and I sent it back to him, and he just sent a whole bunch of notes explaining why all my comments were wrong, saying, well, clearly you didn't see the time tag at the beginning of the chapter, or you didn't see this, or I'm doing this. That's not okay.
No. And that is, and specifically, He had a specific problem. It wasn't that he just got a book and you read the book and you said, okay, this is what I got from your book. This was, I have these people giving me this information that I don't understand why they're having this problem. Do you understand why they're having this problem? You tell him why they're having this problem, and he goes, no, they shouldn't be having this problem because of this.
And
clearly, if they're having that problem, he needs to make a change so they don't.
It was so frustrating, and I'm never giving feedback to this person again because I used valuable time just to have him say, no, you're wrong. These aren't actually problems.
Yeah.
And that is so frustrating. So again, one other thing, and I'm sure we'll come back to this. When you get feedback from people, regardless of what happens, always say thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if it's horrible, terrible, no good, very bad stuff, and you'll never talk to them again because they were absolutely the worst person on the planet, still say thank you.
You smile and say thank you for your time and feedback.
Yes.
Okay, so types of feedback. That was me on my soapbox about all of that because it was a really frustrating, painful experience. But types of feedback. What do you guys got?
Well, obviously your editor is going to give you feedback. That the entire editing process is feedback.
That's right. And there's several different types of feedback within that editing process. So there's the actual grammar structure. Right. And then there's the proofreading stuff. And then the other type of feedback would be plot holes.
Content.
It would be content.
Yeah, content
so, like
editing.
Plot holes and character development, that kind of thing. So
and then there's writing style where you're you're doing too much showing telling. That's not really grammar, but it's, whatever.
Right. Then there's the kind of feedback you get from beta readers, right?
Right. Exactly.
And they're probably going to do more of the content, stylistic stuff. They'll probably catch some of the grammar errors that your editor didn't get.
They always point them out.
They always point them out. And we
Thank
love
you guys.
them. Thank you. We love them for that.
Oh, are you kidding? They make my day. That was my favorite part.
It actually makes our jobs easier.
And it makes the editor's job easier.
It does. And I want to say the readers, once it's out, gives you feedback.
Yeah, it's called a review.
It's called a review, and you need those reviews.
And sales.
Sales are wonderful. They're my favorite feedback.
That's the best part. That is the best kind of feedback.
Okay, I just got feedback. Okay, perfect example. Just sent out the my latest release comes out Tuesday, which is going to be totally off from this. But anyway, it just came out. I gave it to them, and within 24 hours, the first thing I got was from one of the readers. I'm done. Where's the next one? I'm mad. I want more Madeline. Okay, that's really great feedback. It didn't tell me anything about the story. It didn't tell me, what if she liked the little mystery in it.
Well, it told you that she loved the book.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it told me. It doesn't give me details, but who cares? Woot! 24 hours after that, I got the next one, and it was almost identical. I succeeded. Woot!
So with those types of feedback, within the feedback themselves, there's kind of like the hard-hitting, in-your-face kind of feedback. And there's the more, gentle, I want to say, kind of feedback. So how do you navigate between those to get down to the good stuff?
Pick me!
Shatona.
Okay, no, really. How do you best receive feedback?
That's a good question.
How do you best receive it? If you best receive it one way, then you would want to give it one way, right? Well, that's how if you flip it, that's how they give feedback, how they best receive it. So if their feedback isn't helpful, you can give them feedback in the way they gave you your feedback, and voila, they might know how to give you feedback.
That's actually a good point, and that's a perfect segue into our spotlight today.
Oh, hey.
Which Shatona's going to tell you about.
Oh, am I? Okay, I'm going to tell you all about it.
Why? Because she lost.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I am lost. Totally lost. Isn't there something about wandering and lost and something in Tolkien?
So, the spotlight.
Spotlight, yes.
And moving on.
Again, lost. Okay, so today's spotlight is, yeah, you're right. It is a great segue. It's Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, because it's a great resource in understanding how other people hear and receive love by how they give it. So if someone is very into positive words, they feel loved when you say things to them that uplifts them and encourages them. Well, that's likely how they're going to give their feedback, right? Well, the same is true for people who are the acts of service idea where they help. Well, for feedbackers, it would be they want to fix it. So it can sound really negative and like, oh, you got to do this and this and this. Well, they're trying to be super helpful and loving. And you're hearing you're horrible, you're terrible, you're no good, you're very bad. But if you think of it that way, you realize it is beneficial. So there you go.
And it really comes down to knowing who these people are. Because I have some friends that I'm submitting some stuff to them for feedback. I'm a little nervous, but they are ruthless with their feedback. But the thing is, if they get all the way through my story, it means that they liked it. The fact that they didn't quit and put it away and say, this needs more work before you waste my time on this, means that it was good enough for them. And everything else is just them trying to make it better.
Right. Because they care. For example, I have to tell on myself. I had someone ask me for some feedback on her story. And I told her, I said, don't ask me this if you don't mean it, if you really don't want it. And she's like, oh, I do. Well, I found out later that she cried.
Everybody cries when they get shit ton of feedback,
monster.
though. I'm just saying.
She's been pulling her punches with me.
Yeah. Oh, have I? Either that or you're just that good. I don't know.
I don't know.
But according
We'll go
to
with the
this,
second
he's
one.
amazing. So that's in my notes.
There it is in his notes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So,
I
but
wrote
really,
the notes, so you know they're right.
But she knew. The great thing is that she knew that I cared about the book. Because when I got done, I was like, and so where's the rest of the story? I want the rest. And so she was able to just walk away from it, take some deep breaths, go through a couple boxes of Kleenex, come back and go, okay, well, this is great. So she's really happy that I broke her heart.
And I think that brings up a really good point. You have to know how you take feedback.
Very important.
Right.
Because if you don't know how you take feedback and someone else has a totally different style of communication, it's going to be a bad scene altogether.
Right.
So we've been talking a lot about getting feedback. What about giving feedback? Should we give feedback?
Yes.
Why?
Because I need it. So give me some.
Well, okay.
Because we
It's
can't
bossy.
we can't improve without or not we can't. Actually, we can't.
We can't improve.
We can't improve either without giving feedback.
But you can't just constantly take. You've got to give.
Right.
That's called a healthy relationship.
Right? And
Yes,
so
it is.
when someone is willing to benefit you in that way, and it is a benefit even if they do make you cry. Take note. But you
This
need
hurts
to
me
be
more
able
than
to
it hurts
give.
you.
Yeah, it does. Actually, it doesn't. Anyway, but no, really, you need to give. Giving benefits you, but it doesn't matter if it benefits you because sometimes you just have to do what is best for others. If it's all about you, you're going to have a very limited experience.
Well, and I would argue that helping others does help you.
It does.
I honestly think helping someone helps everyone.
Yes.
Because you can get really mired down in your own work, and sometimes all you need is somebody in their story making the exact same mistake you just did so that you can see it bright as day, neon sign. And then suddenly you know how to fix your story.
Right? But even if it doesn't benefit you, it doesn't matter. Everything doesn't have to come back to you.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes it has to you just have to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's the kind thing to do. It's the human thing to do.
I would also say that it builds community.
It does.
I was going to say, preferably these are people you like that you're giving feedback to.
Right. And even
Not
if you
always,
don't, even
but
if you
not
don't,
always.
you give it to them as if you did like them.
That's a good point.
Yes. And you always say thank you for letting me give you feedback.
Okay, I need to remember that.
Yep. Okay.
Because
So
I'm pretty sure I've never done that.
new step in the SOP. Got it.
Oh boy.
So I don't know how much time we have left, but why don't we talk a little bit about how our listener can give better feedback?
Okay.
So
how?
well,
Yeah, Clark, how?
first thing I would like to say is that you are not God.
No.
So
So maybe that's why I make them cry.
part of giving
Okay.
feedback, just as I said, it's okay not to take feedback. Understand that this is not your story. If there is something wrong and things are messed up, it is not your story. You can tell them the problems you see. You may even tell them how you would fix it, but don't think that you have all the answers. Just help them
Help them find their answers.
find their way. Don't
Right.
say, I am God. I know the way. It's to your left.
Always ask what kind of things they are looking for as far as feedback. And if they just say, hey, I need feedback on my story, you need to ask, well, on what? Are you looking feedback for plot holes, character development? I mean, you got to know what it is that you're looking for. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place.
So I also have a general rule, regardless of the type of feedback people are asking for. I will give them that, but then I also do what I'm starting to call, I'm sure somebody else has coined this term, the ABCD of feedback. And that's where, as I'm going through, I will tag things with one of 4 options. I mean, aside from the specific feedback they're looking for.
Right.
I will make note if something is A, awesome, B, boring, C, confusing, or D, instills disbelief. Because I find regardless of what's going on, there's either going to be a lot of A's, which is very uplifting and helpful, or I'm spotting problems that weren't necessarily caught. I like doing the ABCD whenever I give any type of feedback. And I haven't been yelled at yet, so...
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And that helps you keep your mind on what you're actually trying to do for them.
Right. And then another point that I want to make, because I am full of opinions, this goes back to what we were saying before, is don't be insulting with your feedback. Don't be insulting to the people who give you feedback. Don't be insulting with your feedback.
How about just don't be insulting ever?
In general.
Yeah.
So if you were attacking them personally as a, their character, them,
saying you are a bad person for writing this.
that's
You're a bad
not
writer.
Feedback. Okay.
You are
That's
a bad
an
writer
attack.
is not feedback.
That is bad feedback. There is bad feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, there is bad feedback. That would be what it is.
That would be it.
Don't take it.
Don't take that from other people. If you have somebody who's giving you insulting feedback, you take it, you smile and say, thank you for your feedback and your comments. And then you never go to them for feedback again.
That's true. And so once you find those good people, you need to hold on to them with both hands.
And make it worth their while.
And help them as much as you can and as much as they help you.
Right. Feedback can change the entire tone of a story. You did that with Stockings. I had that whole scene that I wanted hysterical. It wasn't.
Stockings is in the sock?
Stockings. No, it actually isn't. It's stock. S-T-A-L-K.
Oh boy.
It's Christmas stockings. But the point being was I wanted a funny scene and I wrote it one way because it was really funny in my head, but when it came out on paper, it wasn't funny. I went to Clark for feedback because he doesn't and I chose feedback from someone who does not read my genre deliberately. And he was able to see what everyone that had read it liked it. They thought it was funny, but it wasn't as funny as I wanted. And he immediately identified what was wrong with it.
That's because Clark is sensitive and amazing.
It says so in the notes.
It says so in my mind.
And if it says so in the notes, which are held on the internet, it's got to be true.
It's got to be true. And with that, we are going to wrap up our podcast for today with, please give us some feedback. How are we doing? I mean, what can we be doing better? How can we serve you better? Let us know down in the comments.
Yeah, this is all about you, and this has been Alive and Writing. Sometimes that's all you've got, but it's all you really need. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.